almost everything you know about video game Shadow. Just imagine all this stuff put in comics with some few differences here and there. Archie comics Shadow. Just like how in the games he can do this special technique known as chaos control thanks to an emerald, do special techniques. He does this kind of stuff in comics because he's the ultimate life form. He is a union of ideas, dark and benign. Let's talk about him. When it comes to his gear and stuff, it's the same stuff you're used to. His rocket skates, the shoes he's always wearing. The cool thing about these is that these allow him to hover while also helping him go real fast. Standard techniques that he always has, he has in the comic lore, spin dash, when he curls up into a ball, stuff that Sonic people do. One thing that's different is that he actually possesses super strength. That's evident when he lifts up big people like Eggman with one arm, or just throw beings the same weight as him, good distances with just raw strength without even relying on speed. They even highlighted saying he's stronger than Sonic, so implying that he actually does have more physical strength than Sonic, apparently. He has this thing known as Chaos Control. Shadow can directly tap into the Chaos Force, warp space-time, allowing him to teleport or throw concentrated spears of energy. His abilities increase exponentially with the Chaos Emerald, so there's implications he can do some sort of certain techniques with Chaos Control, but certain higher level techniques he can do with an Emerald, you know what I mean? So he can still do certain things. He has to have some type of connection with emeralds more than other people, even without holding an emerald. I would say maybe if he wants to teleport super extremely vast distances, he would need at least one emerald. But like short distances, he probably wouldn't need an emerald, if that makes sense. So he can still do some form of chaos control just at a lower extent without an emerald, if that makes sense. Like in comic lore, we've seen him full-blown shoot like chaos energy out his body, like this, for example, like this chaos, multiple chaos spears. I think this concept kind of applies for the video game. He can kind of do chaos emerald stuff, chaos control stuff without the emerald, but with the emerald, they're just on drugs, if that makes sense. Then you got the little thing known as Chaos Shadow, Shadow's gold inhibitor rings. These rings right here he's always wearing. Yep, those actually limit his power. So when he decides to actually take those off, it stops limiting his chaos energy intake. Without them, he becomes a walking dynamo of raw power. So everything he can do before, but do better, faster. His punches are harder like this. This kind of lets you know this right here implies that he can channel chaos energy through the chaos force. All he has to do is take off his inhibitor rings, and he can do the same techniques he can do with the inhibitor rings on, but just better. Like right here, for example, like you can clearly see he has the chaos rings on him still, but he still can shoot energy projection type of attacks. And the cases right here against Sonic, and can shoot multiple from his body like this. But notice when he takes the emeralds off, notice how much more dense the blasts get, and there's definitely narrative implications that they're way worse. So there's definitely implications he has some sort of connection to emeralds even without the emerald necessarily in hand. It's just the emerald makes him do better versions of those same techniques, if that makes sense. With the rings on, he has an interesting connection with it to where he can still do chaos-centric type techniques, but if it's actually in his grasp, he can do better versions of those techniques. Or even if he isn't in his grasp, all he got to do is take off these inhibitor rings, and he can tap into more of this power and do more effective techniques without necessarily it being on him. Now just imagine when he takes the inhibitor rings off and is holding a Chaos Emerald. Wouldn't that be a crazy combination? So he basically got his base form, his inhibitors all formed to connect to Chaos energy more, Chaos Force energy more, and then he got his full-blown Super Shadow form where he's powered up by multiple emeralds. I almost think of these inhibitor rings like weighted training clothes, like on Dragon Ball, on how characters would suppress their power by wearing heavier clothes. So in a weird way, I guess you can look at these inhibitors being taken off as not really a temporary power-up, just him unleashing his true power he already has a connection to, right? But then, of course, you guys know the famous power-up Super Shadow when he gets the power of the 7 Chaos Emerald, turns into a white golden version of himself, capable of flight, invulnerability, near limitless chaos power. You see everything amplified more than normal. Well, for one, just like Sonic, Shadow's a speedster type character, which basically means a big part of the reason why he's even strong is partly because of his raw speed. Because you guys know speed is weight. The One Piece character Kizaru said it best, have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? So even though this is a totally different continuity and different series, this kind of stuff kind of applies for Shadow and why he can even hit hard. Speed is weight. Like everybody knows, there's a difference between straight line speed and just fighting speed. Shadow's one of those characters, he has both. Like he can, like in this case, running on the water. Even though comics are not motion, you can kind of sense when they're trying to imply characters moving fast. Like, look how they draw Shadow's legs. Like, you know he's moving at super speed. Catching up to vehicles, other people riding motorcycles. He's keeping up with them with no problem in running speed. So, yeah, we know he can move in a straight line, but he can also react in a split second while moving at these speeds. His reflexes match his travel speed. I mean, it's a common theme. He's a speedster type character. Like, I think this movie is an example of this on how they perceive stuff slow motion. Like, this is a movie. Of course, this is not comic continuity, but like this same concept applies. Their raw speed, their reflexes, all of it matches. Time slows down around them when they're amping their reflexes up to match their running speed. This type of stuff applies to Shadow. That's why he's able to fight fast with his fists, move fast in a straight line, and even dodge lasers. Even with his inhibitor rings on, he can just overall hit hard because he's just a fast character in general. It also helps that he's physically superhuman too. That's why he can toss beams. You see him lift up this door and throw beams into the wall so hard it actually cracks it. So you know he got super strength and speed, allows him to hit hard. Literally using his speed as weight, like I already said, like running through walls. You can see it in his strikes when he backhands people and they go flying, or just jumping through a roof. How fast, like what's the limits of his raw speed? Look who he's always competing against or running with. Beings like Sonic the Hedgehog, the fastest being alive. There is implications when it comes to raw speed compared to Sonic. He is slower, but trust me guys, it's not by much. Slower is like a vague term. That doesn't mean he's 1,000 times slower. Just you could be slower than somebody being 99% their speed. You would still technically be slower than them, right? Matter of fact, narratively speaking, he just has to be fast. Like they literally talk about how he's near the speed of Sonic. So yeah, he has to be in that level of speed. I mean, they've been in plenty of adventures, Shadow included. Shadow's had to catch up with beings that are alternate reality versions of Sonic and crap. He's had to run with beings like this. Running with Sonic here, for example, to show his speed. Showing even if Sonic has the speed advantage, the gap isn't large at all. We see him in plenty of scans like running with Sonic, implying Sonic can't just burn him out. In speed. I mean, this is evident with their battles too. Like he can run with him and they can fight fast, keeping up with his fighting speed. I'm just showing you a whole bunch of occasions to really drill it in your head, to really get you guys immersed, to show you that Shadow isn't dead weight when it comes to his speed. In this Archie universe too, just like the video games, alternate reality versions of Sonic, we've seen Shadow box it out with him fighting speed. The fact he's hanging with him that much and Sonic had to intervene, let you know how fast they are. In this occasion, we literally see him catch Sonic by the ankle. Him being able to keep up with Sonic in raw speed, even with his inhibitor rings on, might I add. AKA he's not at his full power or max power. He's able to keep up with Sonic with these on, limiting his true speed or his connection to the full power of the Chaos Force. He's still able to keep up with beings like Sonic in raw speed, even with these on. Just keep in mind that Archie Sonic is faster than actual lightning in raw speed or just combat speed in general. That would be by default. Make Shadow the Hedgehog of Archie universe. It's faster than lightning level speed just by the fact he's matching Sonic this much. So off gate, he can already move over 200,000 miles per hour. Keep in mind that Sonic is the type of being that can sprint around the planet, zipping around it real quick. This is the type of stuff Shadow got to compete with. Beings like Sonic that have to dodge particle beams and move not only light speed, but double the speed of light. There's plenty of scans of Shadow, even without his full power being unleashed, being able to keep up with Sonic. Somebody that can move faster than the speed of light in Archie comics, or even double the speed of light. So by default, Shadow should be at least light speed in raw speed or 2 times the speed of light. This would mean by bare minimum, he'll be able to run or move at least 1 billion or 1 billion miles per hour, being comparable to Sonic to the slightest degree. Being bare minimally at 2 times the speed of light with these on, just imagine if he takes these off, he gets a lot more raw power and a lot more raw speed when he channels the full power of the Chaos Force. He should be able to do everything I just mentioned to you, but way better in this state. I mean, there's no official multiplier, but he should by default be way faster than 2 times the speed of light when he takes his inhibitor rings off. Even if we assume he doesn't take them off, even if he just does chaos control to slow down time via chaos control, wouldn't this automatically be way faster than just the speeds of light? If you can freeze time completely, wouldn't it be like technically infinite speed? Sonic is a character in the lore that can visit all the planets in the universe, even the ones we don't know about yet, and still be home for dinner. If this universe is implied to be infinite, that would mean he checked an infinite amount of places in a finite amount of time. That would technically be infinite speed. If you can check every planet, and there's limitless planets in the universe, and if you can check all that before it's time for dinner, a limited time, that would technically be limitless speed or infinite speed, matching Sonic this much consistently. Even if you were to say the universe has a limit and he checked every planet in the universe, even if you wanted to lowball the universe and say the universe itself had a limit, that would still be way, I'm talking about billions and trillions of times, quadrillions of times faster than the speed of light. That would also apply for Shadow too. Even if we assume the universe itself is not infinite, just to give an idea of Sonic and Shadow's speed, by default, he'd be astronomically faster than the speed of light by a very scary amount. But then if we apply that Sonic really did run the entire universe, that would just change all this. If he checked infinite amount of places in a finite amount of time, that would be infinite speed. Even though there's evidence that suggests that the universe is actually infinite, but saying the words countless planets, host of endless array of bizarre alien races, the universe is implied to be infinite. And then how fast would he be if he takes off its inhibitor rings? How fast would he be then? Or even if he kept his inhibitor rings on, how fast would Super Shadow be? 1,000 times faster than Infinite? Like what? 1,000 times faster than already being faster than the speed of light, already being fast enough to check everywhere in the universe before it's time for dinner, times 1,000 type speed if he's comparable to Sonic. Super form. Like this is one of the feats that's hard to measure. Sonic and his Archie has done some crazy stuff like running this cosmic interstate. It's a door that leads to every door. No, it's a long winding road that leads to everybody's door. This just gives you a little idea of what Shadow has to be able to be in the ballpark with. Really hard to measure this, but yeah, it's a road that leads to every dimension in the multiverse. Sonic has to traverse this cosmic interstate, interdimensional highway. Yeah, Shadow has to compete with this guy's speed. Yeah. See, here's the thing when it comes to time manipulation abilities. People don't ever think of it this way, but when you think of it, if you're able to move while time is completely stopped, I'm talking about completely stopped, not just slow down to where it looks like it stopped. I'm talking about completely stopped. You would technically have to achieve infinite speed to be able to move while time is stopped. Because in Archie, they talk about how there's a difference between time slowing and time stopping. There's a difference. And they differentiate it. They understand that there's a difference between slowing it down to the point to where everything looks like it's frozen, but there's a difference between actually stopping time completely and characters being able to move with their raw speed. I mean, Shadow is a being that has a time manipulation type of ability with chaos control. Technically, infinite speed stuff should apply for him when he's especially manipulating time, when he's moving and everything else is completely stopped. So it's really no surprise when you see him hit beams, all this speed behind it, big metal structures like security things, you see him punch through it. He's constantly punching and damaging Sonic with the weight of his hits, with the rings on. Look how the environment acts when you see him strike. Other than hitting Sonic with punches like this, we've seen him punch out a glass container. So with his speed and muscle and everything put together, punching through brick walls or concrete walls really shouldn't be a discussion, really. I mean, we see his hits do this type of stuff to gems, do this kind of stuff to metal large cannons. Shadow's also able to hit that hard too. These two literally acting like some corkscrews. Like, look at all this metal they're literally drilling through, working together with Sonic. Strikes. This large robot thingy, he just blitzes through it. Busting through concrete ain't really no issue. Like, it's pretty obvious that he's got to be somewhere in the ballpark with Sonic. I mean, he looks just like him, but just has differences and uniqueness that Sonic can't do, like chaos control without an emerald and stuff. He's constantly hitting Sonic themed stuff like Metal Sonic. Remember I told you how, his base state with inhibitor rings on, he can still punch really hard. This kind of concept goes for his blast power. He can shoot out energy blasts too. A best way to get an understanding of his base self is to understand his super mode self, like his shadow mode, because we can kind of understand how strong these shadow modes or these super modes are based on previous super beings in this universe that get powered up by the same stuff, like Super Sonic. Like these scans I'm about to show you in literally 2 seconds is not necessarily shadow. Like this isn't shadow, nor is this shadow here, but this super mode stuff kind of should apply for shadow too, because he's getting powered up by the same stuff these beings like Super Sonic is powered up by. And there's implications that they're bare minimally getting powered up by 1,000-fold at least. And if we're to take these numbers seriously, you can kind of get an idea of how strong Super Shadow would have to be, being comparable to Sonic in almost every way when it comes to raw punching power and speed, because it's an 1,000 times boost. Technically, by default, Super Shadow would be 1,000 times faster too. The same way Supersonic's speed is talked about as incalculable, that should apply for Super Shadow in the Super Mode too. 1,000 times faster and 1,000 times strength boost. You see where this is going? We can kind of use this to understand his base power. Say if this one can punch with the force to shatter dimension. The force to shatter dimension divided by 1,000. How much force would that be? That's technically what base Shadow would be, if these numbers are legit. Like, they pretty much talk about Supersonic here. Yeah, I'm talking about Shadow in this video. Yeah, but this kind of should apply for Shadow too, about how the super mode, whatever Sonic can do when it comes to raw blast power in his supersonic state, this kind of should apply for Shadows too. I mean, it's literally the same power source. Keep in mind that super modes have enough blast power to destroy moons, destroying the world's moons, more than one moon, implying 2 planetoids these beings can destroy in these super modes. If Super Shadow is anything like Supersonic, he would be able to blow up a moon or 2 by default. And since this form is 1,000 times weaker, that would mean he would still technically have the punching power, if he's really, if the numbers are true, do catastrophic damage to an entire country or even large countries. Smaller countries he would be able to level, like in his base state, if we take that 1,000 times thing seriously. So that's still impressive. But of course, this super form stuff gets way more impressive than just moon shattering stuff. Other versions of Sonic in the multiverse, different versions of Sonic, they have their own super modes that kind of work similarly when it comes to their power boost. They casually talk about how, I'm going to spin dash the planet in half. So not just moon-sized structures, they're talking about actual planets. These characters in their super modes apparently can break apart. Destroying moon-sized structures is not a really good way to understand its true limits, but instead, if we're talking about these super modes having the raw power to split an entire Earth in half with their strikes, this could give you a more understanding of Shadow's base strength, because like I said, if that number is seriously only 1,000 times weaker, what's 1,000 times less the force needed to destroy the Earth? You know what I'm saying? Or a planet similar to the size of Earth. If the calculations about having the bare minimum force needed to destroy the Earth is 53 quadrillion megatons is indeed accurate, all we have to do is divide this by 1,000 to understand what his base stuff would be. If that 1,000 junk is true, that would still be an amazing, impressively strong 53 trillion megatons of force, even though that's 1,000 times weaker than this. 53 trillion megatons of force would still be enough to level a continent, guys, in his base state, guys. Like, his punches would be that heavy to put out that equivalent energy needed to level a larger continent. Like North America or something, his punches would feel like the force needed to tremble something this massive, or the raw energy put out would be the equivalent energy needed to level such a large structure. I mean, he's double the speed of light. He can hit you at light speed. It kind of adds up. This same type of stuff should apply for his energy blast too. They should be as potent. Chaos control, chaos spears, these attacks should be this potent too. Along with his punches, his blast power should be able to do similar, basing it off of the 1,000 times multiplier stuff. The thought of a hedgehog having the power to do this kind of destruction to countries way more force than nuclear bombs sounds scary, doesn't it? But this still doesn't give you an idea of how strong he is based on this super mode, because this planet shattering stuff, what if I told you this stuff is just super duper low end? Like, this particular occasion isn't Shadow, but this is the same concept. Super modes fighting. People talk about super modes fighting each other. They can tear the planet apart. Like, you see them both in their super modes right here, for example. Got to be comparable when it comes to their super modes. You can kind of get an idea of how strong Shadow super mode by Sonic super mode. Like, these super modes can hit with a crazy amount of concussive force. Like, this is just straight up punches, guys. No reality warping stuff. Even though these super modes can reality warp, this is just a straight up punch. Two being super modes collapse, striking each other. They erupt with an unimaginable amount of raw energy. It literally bends time and space. The walls containing the zone's reality begin warping wildly. The zone can no longer contain itself. It swells, it cracks, it explodes. For those that are not familiar with the Sonic universe, these zones are like different realities. Yep. Yeah, the Sonic universe is a little unique, but yeah, this is giving an idea of what the super modes can do. Different universes or zones at different places with other physical matter. Yep, there's different dimensions in this universe. And in the lore of the Archie Sonic, they talk about these different zones in the multiverse. A zone itself usually refers to an alternate reality and entire dimension, and it can also be referred to a smaller pocket dimension. So I'm pretty sure if you can punch with enough concussive force, it bends time and space and breaks physics, makes a whole dimension implode or explode. Or a zone, what they call an alternate reality. All this stuff I was mentioning about continent shattering and earth shattering is nowhere near their limits. All this stuff should apply for Shadow, Super Shadow. His punches, I don't see no reason why they wouldn't. They should be able to do similar when it comes to messing up an entire dimension or an entire reality or zone. Clashing with another super being, an entire universe basically. And I'm pretty sure the power needed to destroy an entire zone is more force needed to destroy a small planetoid. So even if you want to say he's 1,000 times weaker, what's 1,000 times weaker than dimension shattering? I'll say it for you. Way more energy needed to destroy the Earth or shake an entire planet like Earth. So his base form should be able to destroy or shake planets like Earth. Being 1,000 times weaker than that super mode, that would still be plenty of power to destroy the Earth. Along with even bigger planets like Jupiter, that shouldn't be an issue either in his base state. Shaking or destroying planets like Earth, Jupiter shouldn't be a problem. Even ridiculously large structures like the sun, his punches should be able to shake. 1,000 times weaker than dimension shattering power is still enough power to destroy a sun. You know what I mean? That's how big dimensions and stuff are. Even if we was to assume that dimension wasn't infinite or something. A lot of people hate to assume every dimension's infinite and stuff. Even if dimension wasn't infinite, that would still be way more power needed, you know. Not to mention that the Sonic people in the lore, not just Shadow, but just in general, there's a constant theme of them fighting beings that have powers of Chaos Emeralds in their base states. So yeah, they kind of have to be planet busters just by default. They're always fighting beings that are powered up by stuff, vice versa. The supersonic, super characters in general are powered up by these super emeralds that give them amazing power. That's the reason why their super form is even so powerful. One of these emeralds, for example, just one, guys, well, technically, even half of an emerald can just literally create entire dimensions by accident or universes by accident. Yeah, so it just lets you know what kind of power these things can do. Creation of a new zone. This is the type of stuff Super Shadow and Super Sonic, like universe shaking or destroying stuff, shouldn't be really that much of a debate. And guys, this is the power of one emerald. How strong do you think Super Shadow is when he has multiple of these emeralds, and one of them can create a universe like it ain't no big deal, or a whole zone? I mean, there's literally statements in the lore about these emeralds having infinite power. Like, so all this universe making stuff, it makes sense. What do you think Shadow can do in his super form when he has more than one? You see where this is going? Multiple universe type of destruction, multiple universe trembling might. The Chaos Emeralds is the reason why the Super Genesis wave is even a thing. You know, the thing that will reshape and redo all of reality, that Super Genesis wave, is because of these super emeralds. This is the type of stuff Shadow's powered by. They even talk about the power of the Super Genesis wave. It's because of these emeralds. Like, I'm talking about multiple universes can get rewritten and everything. These emeralds are the reason why they can reshape everything, rebuild our universes to the tiniest. Like right here, this isn't Shadow, this is supersonic, but this should apply for Super Shadow too. I mean, it's the same form. They was literally going to fix everything that the Genesis wave had caused, restoring universes. This would have worked if Sonic didn't get interrupted, but yeah, he had the power to do it here. Like, this can kind of give you an idea of how strong 7 emeralds are if 14 of them can threaten apparently infinite. Like right here, I'm talking about 14. There was apparently going to be some Crisis on Infinite Earths type stuff. Like, yeah, this kind of gets crazy to let you know how strong these super modes are in Archie, Shadow. All this stuff should apply for Shadow. Having this kind of raw power to mess up multiple universes, shake the foundations of multiple universes. You get the idea. Possibly threaten maybe close to infinite universes. If Shadow's base form is 1,000 times weaker than his, wouldn't that still mean he would be able to shake multiple universes? Because what's an infinite amount of universes divided by 1,000? Like, it wouldn't even matter. Like, even if we say a finite amount of universes. Say if his best in his super mode was only destroying 3 universes. What's 1,000 divided by the power needed to destroy 3 universes? That would still be enough power to mess up a couple observable universes. You see how this goes? Like, his base would still have to be crazy. His hits would basically feel like galaxy shattering type of force. The equivalent force needed to destroy galaxy type force. Like, that would still be a ridiculous amount, even being 1,000 times weaker than the super mode. You know what I mean? Let's get off the super shadow mode real quick. What about just him unleashing his true power and getting true connection to the Chaos Force? Him just taking these off. Wouldn't he be able to do anything base Shadow can do but better without needing an actual Chaos Emerald to power him up? He would just be fully more connected to the Chaos Force like this. He should be able to easily destroy planets, solar systems, stars, tremble galaxies like this. He's very similar to having the power of a Chaos Emerald anyway, the Chaos Force. So shattering multiple galaxies shouldn't really be debatable, really. You probably know about this Chaos Force from Knuckles. When he removes these rings, he kind of can mimic similar powers to just like Chaos Emeralds kind of without even using it here, just by taking off his inhibitor rings, getting a crazy amount of power. But this is a good alternative if he ain't got no emeralds nearby. I mean, he's fully tapping into this thing known as the Chaos Force, a place that's a higher plane of existence. Like, that's how the Chaos Force is. Like, this occasion they're talking about Knuckles, but this is the type of force that Shadow can connect to by taking off his inhibitor rings. You see how they talk cryptic? I'm the force and the force is all, you know, Chaos Force. No, I'm not playing. They literally do some higher dimensional being type stuff on a higher plane of reality. So one could say Shadow could be on some cosmic stuff when he takes off these inhibitor rings. They talk about Knuckles here. When Knuckles temporarily did this, he was an entity outside of time and space. So yeah, in this state, he more than likely can tremble the very fabric of the universe or universes connected to such a higher plane, being fully connected to the Chaos Force, which is a higher dimensional plane. Like, yeah, leveling universe type stuff should be like standard at this point. So I think it goes like this. Of course, him taking off his inhibitor rings, he's stronger, but then I would say his super mode's even higher than that. He's way faster than the speed of light no matter how you slice it, even in his weakest state. Forms like this is 1,000 times stronger than his base state if we take them things seriously about Supersonic and Archie. If we apply this to his base state here, the crazy stuff he does here, multiversal destruction type stuff, even 1,000 times weaker than multiversal destruction, that would basically still mean he could produce universe shattering force or equivalent energy. And then this should be more than that. You get the idea. His base form by default, even being thousands of times weaker than super form, should definitely bare minimally have the strength to shake multiple galaxies, even the whole universe. Imagine getting hit at infinite speeds. Or imagine getting hit massively faster than the speed of light. I mean, if you want to go off of real physics, technically hitting somebody at light speed would technically be infinite mass, but let's not go there. Taking off the inhibitor rings, he can tap into a higher dimensional plane's energy and fully connect to where he can kind of produce Chaos Emerald-esque type of power. You know, one Chaos Emerald can destroy the universe or rewrite the universe and stuff. Not to mention all 7. And you guys already know what all 7 emeralds can do when he's in the super mode. Multiple universes can be destroyed, recreated, timelines can be collapsed on themselves with this kind of power. You get the idea. Shadow, Super Shadow. Do you respect Shadow in general though? Respect them. But before I get going, everybody, thanks for the donations, everybody. It helps out a lot. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.